She wasn't rich. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't even supposed to speak. But when a bullied waitress uncovered the one secret a billionaire's wife spent her whole life hiding, she didn't just expose a monster. She freed an entire restaurant from fear. And what happened after, no one saw coming. The Golden Rose wasn't just a restaurant. It was a kingdom carved from marble, gold, and fear. And its queen, Victoria Ashford, ruled with an iron smile. Every Friday, when the clock hit 7, the air inside tightened. Waiters straightened their jackets. Hosts practiced their apologies. Chefs whispered prayers no one would admit to believing. Because Friday was Victoria's night. The millionaire's wife didn't walk in. She entered like a storm. Every step announced power. Every glance threatened consequences, and every small mistake ended someone's career. A spilled drink, gone at a wrong order, gone at a greeting that wasn't enthusiastic enough, gone, sometimes in tears. Employees learned to fear the sound of her heels. People left their shifts shaking. One hostess quit on the spot after Victoria called her decor not a human being. No one dared look her in the eyes, and no one dared breathe too loudly, and no one dared exist outside her approval. Until her, Rachel, the new waitress with tired eyes, a second-hand uniform, and a life that had fallen apart so completely she had nothing left to lose. But there was something strange about her, something that didn't match her shaking hands or the shadows under her eyes. Her spirit wasn't broken. Even after losing her home, even after her fiancé walked away, even after life had pushed her to the edge, she still carried a warmth, a softness, a quiet courage. She didn't know the legend of Victoria Ashford. She didn't understand the fear. All she knew was that she needed this job to survive, and that one day, soon, she would make the woman everyone feared look utterly ridiculous. The moment Rachel checked the schedule and saw her assigned table, her breath caught. Table 7 at Victoria Ashford's table. The one assignment every staff member prayed to avoid. The assignment that had destroyed 3 employees in the past 2 months alone. It wasn't written in ink, but everyone called it the execution seat. Rachel, are you sure you can handle this? Miguel, the head waiter, whispered urgently. She tests new staff. And by test, I mean she'll try to break you. Rachel swallowed, feeling the knot in her throat tighten. I'll be okay, she said softly. And for the first time since she joined, Miguel didn't look entirely convinced. The entrance of the queen at exactly 7:03 p.m. The restaurant doors swung open. Victoria Ashford stepped in wearing a diamond bracelet worth more than Rachel's entire life savings. Her dress, blood red and flawless, flowed behind her like a warning sign. Her hair was pulled back so sharply it seemed even her scalp obeyed her. The room froze. Forks paused mid-air. Whispers died. Even the music felt quieter. Victoria's husband trailed behind her, eyes down, shoulders stiff, a man who had learned the price of disagreeing with her. The hostess guided them to table 7, trembling with every step. Victoria didn't acknowledge her, didn't acknowledge anyone. She simply sat, crossing one leg over the other like a queen settling onto her throne. Rachel approached with the best smile she could gather. Good evening, Mrs. Ashford. Welcome back to the Golden Rose. Victoria didn't look up. A new one, she murmured, as if Rachel were a dish someone brought out without asking. Let's hope you're not as useless as the last girl. A few giggles rose from Victoria's friends, the ones who cheered her cruelty because being near a powerful predator felt safer than being its prey. Rachel felt her stomach twist, but she stayed steady. What can I get for you tonight? Victoria finally looked up, her eyes sharp, amused, and predatory. Oh, you're not nervous. She leaned back, studying her like a scientist examining a specimen. That's rare. I'm here to take care of you, Rachel said gently. That's all. The table fell silent. Victoria's eyebrow arched. The first sign of annoyance. The first attempt. I'd like my water room temperature, Victoria said. Of course. And no lemon. I despise lemon. Rachel nodded. Got it. 5 minutes later, she returned with the water. Neutral, clean, simple. Victoria lifted the glass, took one sip, and paused dramatically. Then she slammed it on the table. There's lemon in this. The entire table gasped. Miguel, watching from across the room, closed his eyes. Rachel blinked, confused. There's no lemon, ma'am. Victoria smiled, a slow, wicked smile. Are you calling me a liar? Rachel felt the blood drain from her face. People had been fired for less. No, ma'am, she said quietly. I would never say that. Good, Victoria said, waving her hand dismissively. Now bring me another glass. And try not to ruin it this time. The second attempt. The fake complaint when Rachel returned, Victoria whispered loudly to her friends. These new girls they hire, they're sloppy. Look, her hands are shaking. Rachel looked down. They were. Her anxiety, her past, her exhaustion. It all trembled through her fingers. She'll spill something any minute, Victoria continued. She looks like the type who cries easily. Laughter rippled around the table. Rachel stood there silently, not defending herself, not apologizing, just breathing. She placed the new water down gently, her hands steadying with the contact of the table's cool surface. Victoria clicked her tongue. Still wrong, she announced. Then she waved to the manager, who approached in terror. This waitress, Victoria declared, is disrespectful, incompetent, and just try to argue with me. The manager's face paled. Rachel, is this true? Rachel looked him straight in the eyes. No, I didn't argue. I simply said there was no lemon in the water. Victoria laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. So you admit you call me a liar? Rachel inhaled slowly. No, she said softly. I said the drink had no lemon. That's all. Victoria stared at her, cold, unblinking. You're bold. Too bold. But Rachel didn't react. She didn't lower her eyes. She didn't apologize for existing. She didn't crumble. Her silence wasn't feared. It was choosing dignity, something Victoria wasn't used to seeing. The moment everything shifted, Victoria leaned forward, her voice almost a hiss. Do you know who I am? Rachel nodded gently. Yes, ma'am. Everyone does. And you're still standing there like you're not afraid of me. Rachel swallowed, then said the one sentence that would shift the entire night. I've been through worse things than your words. Victoria froze, and no one had ever said something like that to her. Not without shaking, not without tears, not without breaking. Rachel wasn't defiant. She wasn't confrontational. She was simply honest, just honest. And it disarmed Victoria more than any argument could. The fire wakes up. Rachel saw Victoria's eyes flicker, just for half a second, with something unexpected, confusion. Maybe even vulnerability. That it was tiny, but it was real. For the first time, Victoria didn't know what to do. Rachel gently collected the empty glasses, her voice soft and steady. I'll give you a moment to look at the menu. Let me know whenever you're ready. And she walked away, not shaking, not apologizing, not broken. As she moved, she felt something warm ignite in her chest, something she thought she'd lost when her life fell apart at a small, sleeping fire. Finally waking up at a fire that would soon turn the most feared woman in the city into someone everyone would talk about for a very different reason. Because tonight, Victoria Ashford had just met the one waitress she couldn't intimidate, the one woman who saw through her cruelty, the one person who would soon make her look utterly ridiculous. Rachel never went looking for trouble, but trouble had a habit of finding her. And after that unforgettable Friday night, the night she refused to break under Victoria Ashford's cruelty, something shifted inside her. Not anger, not revenge, just curiosity. Victoria acted like a woman born from diamonds, prestige, and a long family line of power. But Rachel had seen something in her eyes, a flicker of fear disguised as arrogance, that a crack in the perfect portrait that a woman like that wasn't just cruel. She was hiding something. And Rachel, long before her life collapsed, had been something else too. An investigative researcher, one of the best at her field, the kind who could dig through decades of buried pasts and find truths people paid fortunes to keep hidden. Until the day her fiancé stole her project, took credit, and left her career in ruins. Now she served tables, but the instincts hadn't died. Quietly, carefully, she began digging, not to destroy Victoria, not to humiliate her, but to understand her, because no one was born a villain. Step 1. The name that didn't exist. Rachel started with the basics. Victoria Ashford, a name that should have appeared in society pages, charity events, debutante archives, old money registries. But in every database, every public record, the name shimmered like a mirage. Too perfect, too polished, too conveniently neat. There were mentions of her as the millionaire's wife, mentions of her charity galas and luxury travels, but nothing before the last 7 years. Nothing about childhood, nothing about parents, nothing about education, nothing about her life before she became Victoria. It was as if the woman had materialized out of thin air, stepping into wealth fully formed. And that was impossible. Rachel knew a fabricated identity when she smelled one. Step 2. The missing past. Normally, old money families had one thing in common. History did a trail of photos, articles, school records, gossip columns, scandals, successions, something, but Victoria had none. Rachel found zero registry under Ashford-linked heiresses and mentions of her in her husband's business history until after their wedding, an maiden name, and ancestral ties. Just silence, a silence too careful, too curated. The silence of someone who had paid a lot to bury a former self. Step 3. The first break in the wall. Rachel widened her search, not as a waitress, but as the researcher she once was. Using small clues she overheard from Victoria's friends, she pieced together fragments. Victoria hated being photographed unexpectedly. She refused interviews. She avoided events where journalists roamed freely. She changed. Staff often, especially anyone who asked personal questions. She never spoke about childhood or school, only private tutors and exclusive academies. And then came the biggest hint. During a meltdown over a slightly wrinkled napkin, Victoria screamed, "This is why I left people like you behind." Left from where? Rachel wrote the phrase down, because people who wrote new origin stories always left small cracks in their rewritten lives. She just needed one of those cracks to widen. Step 4. The photo that changed everything. It happened late one night, around 2:00 a.m. Rachel's laptop was glowing on her tiny kitchen table, her fingers numb from hours of searching dead ends. She rubbed her temples, ready to call it a night, when a thumbnail image on an obscure gossip blog archive caught her. A girl. Young, smiling too brightly, wearing cheap makeup and a glittery outfit that didn't quite fit. The caption read, "Vicky Brightwell. Reality show train wreck returns home after meltdown." Rachel froze. Vicky Brightwell. She clicked. The page loaded slowly, the kind of old, abandoned web page that barely held itself together. But the moment the image enlarged, Rachel's heart skipped. That it was her. Victoria Ashford, but younger, rougher around the edges, and visibly furious in a video still where she was mid-scream. The article described her as a contestant on a short-lived reality show a decade ago, one that ended when a cast member had a public meltdown on national TV. When the girl flipped a table, screamed obscenities, stormed off set threatening producers, the internet had laughed for a week, then forgotten her. But that girl, that temper, that burning need to be seen, respected, adored, Rachel could see it instantly. Vicky Brightwell and Victoria Ashford were the same woman. And just like that, everything made sense. The fake refinement, the exaggerated superiority, the obsession with being feared rather than loved, the desperate control over every detail, the rage at mistakes, the intolerance for embarrassment. Victoria wasn't cruel because she was powerful. She was cruel because she was terrified someone might see who she used to be, to a girl from nowhere, from nothing, to a girl who once begged for fame, then collapsed under its spotlight, to the girl whose public humiliation was still out there, buried in dusty corners of the internet, waiting to resurface. The lie behind the queen. Rachel leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. Victoria wasn't old money. She wasn't royalty. She wasn't aristocratic or elegant or elite. She was Vicky Brightwell, daughter of a mechanic, raised in a cramped apartment above a pawn shop, a reality TV dropout who'd reinvented herself from scratch. She clawed her way into a new life and then built walls of cruelty to protect it, because she feared one thing more than anything: being exposed. Rachel sat there for a long moment, staring at the image. The girl in the photo looked angry. Yes, but also scared, fragile, lonely, and Rachel whispered to the empty room. So that's why you hurt people. Not because Victoria Ashford enjoyed causing fear, but because Vicky Brightwell never wanted to feel small again. Rachel closed her laptop gently. She didn't feel triumph. She didn't feel power. She felt empathy, and she understood now, better than ever. Victoria wasn't the villain she pretended to be. She was a scared girl she'd spent a lifetime running from. But soon, very soon, the truth would force Victoria to face the one thing she feared most, herself, and Rachel would be the one standing in front of her when it happened. The Golden Rose was unusually quiet for a Friday night. Too quiet, and oh trembling hands, and oh nervous whispers, and oh frantic polishing of glassware in fear of one woman's judgment. Victoria Ashford hadn't come for 2 weeks. Some said she was traveling. Others said she was sick, but Rachel knew better. The truth had a way of stirring storms long before they arrived. And tonight, as the clock hit 7:03 p.m., the exact minute Victoria always entered, the doors of the restaurant slammed open. Victoria stood there, alone, and oh entourage, and oh friends. Not even her husband trailing behind her like a shadow. Just Victoria, furious, breathless, and shaking with so much rage it felt like electricity crackled around her. Her hair was messier than usual, her lipstick slightly smudged. Her eyes, normally cold and perfect, were wild. She looked like a woman who had run from something or like a woman running to destroy something. And that something was Rachel. You ruined my life. Victoria didn't wait to be seated. She stormed straight across the restaurant floor, heels striking the marble like gunshots. Customers froze mid-bite. Staff ducked out of the way. Rachel stood by the counter, holding a tray, and watching her approach without flinching. Victoria stopped just inches away from her. You, she hissed. You little nobody. Miguel stepped forward, but Rachel held up a hand, calm, steady. What's wrong, Mrs. Ashford? Rachel asked softly to Victoria's jaw clenched. You think I don't know what you're doing? She stepped closer. You think I don't know what you found? Rachel didn't speak. Her silence was an answer. Victoria's nostrils flared. You have no idea what kind of power I have, Victoria growled. I can end you. I can ruin your career, your name, your entire life. I can bury you so deep. Rachel quietly set her tray down. You've already tried to ruin my life, she said gently, and I survived. A ripple moved through the watching staff. This was not the trembling new girl who walked in months ago. This was someone awake, someone with fire in her chest. Threats turned to desperation. Victoria leaned in, voice sharp as knives. I could have you arrested, fired, blacklisted. I could make sure no restaurant, no company, no one in this city ever hires you again. Rachel nodded. I know. And you're still standing there? Victoria whispered, stunned. I am, Rachel replied, because I'm not afraid of you anymore. Victoria blinked. Something cracked. Not loudly, not visibly, but Rachel saw it, a flicker of panic. Give me my past back, Victoria hissed. You have no right digging into my life. Rachel took a slow breath. Your past belongs to you, she said softly. But the person you've been hurting, the people you've destroyed here, her eyes swept around the room. They don't deserve the monster you've become. Victoria recoiled, like the words were acid. I am not a monster, she snapped. I built myself. I earned everything I have. No one helped me. No one cared about me. I made myself powerful so people could never. Her voice broke, startling even her. For a second, the whole restaurant fell silent. Rachel spoke gently. So no one could ever humiliate you like you were humiliated before. Victoria froze. Her breath hitched. Rachel had touched the wound. The real one, the footage that could destroy everything. Victoria recovered quickly, masking vulnerability with rage. What do you want? She spat. Money? A deal? Silence? Tell me your price. Rachel shook her head. I don't want anything. Liar. Rachel pulled out her phone. Slowly, carefully, Victoria's blood seemed to drain from her face. No, she whispered. The screen showed a pause video frame, grainy, old, but unmistakable. Vicky Brightwell got red-faced, screaming at producers, flipping a table, collapsing in tears. Her meltdown that had once gone viral, Victoria's hands shot out toward the phone. Delete that. Rachel stepped back. I'm not here to expose you, she said softly. But if you ever threaten me again, if you ever hurt someone in this restaurant again, if you ever treat a human being like trash again, her voice steadied. I will send this footage to every journalist in the city. Gasps echoed around the room. Victoria stumbled back, literally stumbled. You wouldn't, she whispered. I would, Rachel replied. Not because I want revenge, but because I won't let you destroy anyone else. Victoria shook her head, tears brimming but refusing to fall. You don't understand, she whispered. I can't go back to being her. I can't be Vicky again. Rachel stepped closer, then stopped acting like her. Victoria looked up sharply. Rachel held her gaze, calm, steady, unwavering. You reinvented your life, Rachel said gently. You escaped a painful past. You built a new name, a new world, a new identity. Victoria's breathing grew ragged. So why? Rachel asked softly. Did you become the very thing that once destroyed you? The words hit like a blade that Victoria's face twisted. I in pain, I in disbelief, I in recognition. Because deep down she knew Rachel was right. The collapse of a queen. Rachel lowered her phone. I don't want to ruin you, she said. I want you to stop ruining others. Victoria's chest rose and fell unevenly. Her hands trembled, not in rage this time, but in something far deeper. Fear, the real kind, the kind she'd spent a lifetime burying beneath diamonds and cruelty. Behind her, the staff stood silently. People she'd yelled at, humiliated, reduced to tears. People she'd forgotten were human. Victoria turned, slowly, and she saw them watching her. Not with fear, not with hatred, with exhaustion, with truth, with disappointment. Something inside her snapped. Her voice cracked as she whispered, I'm not coming back here. Rachel nodded, not triumphantly, not smugly, just quietly. Victoria walked toward the exit, her heels wobbling for the first time in her life. She reached the door, paused, and looked back at Rachel. Don't show anyone that footage, she whispered. I won't, Rachel replied, as long as you don't hurt anyone again. Victoria closed her eyes, swallowed hard, and nodded, a tiny, broken gesture. Then she walked out. The woman everyone feared, the woman who ruled through cruelty, the woman who built herself into a queen to hide the scared girl beneath, gone, forever. The room breathes again for a full minute. No one moved. Then Miguel exhaled loudly, almost collapsing against the counter. Oh my God, he whispered. Rachel, you just ended her. Rachel shook her head. No, she said softly. She ended herself long ago. I just stopped her from ending us. The staff slowly gathered around her, not cheering, not celebrating, just relieved, because tonight, for the first time in years, the Golden Rose felt like a place where humans worked, not prisoners. Rachel looked around at their tired faces, faces that suddenly seemed a little lighter. She had defended them, protected them, given them courage, and as the weight of it settled in her chest, she realized something strange. Her own life, the one that had fallen apart, was finally beginning to rebuild. Itself, not with big victories, but with small acts of quiet courage. And the woman who once ruled with fear, she walked out of the Golden Rose that night, defeated, unmasked, and never to return. But the story was far from over, because now Victoria wasn't the only one who had to face her true self. Rachel did too, and the world was about to see just how powerful a once broken woman could become. In the days that followed Victoria's downfall, something beautiful happened inside the Golden Rose. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly like sunrise. Rachel didn't celebrate. She didn't boast. She didn't even tell most people what truly happened. But stories travel fast in places where fear once lived, and soon, the whisper spread. Rachel stood up to her. Rachel didn't break. Rachel protected us. Before long, the staff who once shook under Victoria's shadow began smiling again, laughing again, standing a little taller. The kitchen felt warmer. The dining room felt lighter. People breathed like human beings, not like prisoners waiting for judgment. Rachel had become something she never expected, a quiet legend. The truth that freed a husband a week later, as Rachel was wiping down a table after closing, a soft voice spoke behind her. "Excuse me, Rachel." She turned at IT was Mr. Ashford, Victoria's husband, and a man who had always walked 2 steps behind his wife, head down, spirit dimmed. But tonight, his shoulders were straighter. "I heard what you did," he said gently. "How you stood up to her. How you protected everyone." Rachel hesitated. "I didn't want to hurt her." "I know," he said, "and that's exactly why you succeeded." He exhaled shakily. "For years, I stayed because I thought she was unbreakable, untouchable. I thought no one could stand up to her without being destroyed." He swallowed hard. "But you, a young woman working double shifts, you did what millionaires, lawyers, and friends couldn't." He paused, voice trembling in a way that revealed years of trapped pain. "You helped me find my courage too." Rachel didn't speak. She didn't need to. He nodded softly. "I filed for divorce this morning." And with those simple words, a man regained his freedom. The offer she never expected. 2 days later, Rachel received an email from a private investigations firm, one she had once dreamed of joining before her life collapsed. The message was short. "We've heard of your work, that we saw your research background, that we want you as our new lead investigator." Rachel's hands trembled as she read it. The life she thought was gone forever had just opened its doors again. Not because someone rescued her, not because luck struck, but because she stood up to a woman everyone feared, with nothing but truth and courage, that a staff that finally breathed free. The golden rose changed in ways small and enormous. In more walking on eggshells, in more shift anxiety, in more cruel surprises on Friday nights. Miguel, once the shaking head waiter, now ran the floor with confidence. Sarah, the hostess who had cried in the bathroom after Victoria's insults, now greeted guests with genuine joy. Even the chefs, once terrified of sending out dishes, began experimenting with flavors again. IT wasn't just a restaurant anymore. IT was a place reborn. Because someone had finally said, enough. One moment of courage. Rachel stood outside the restaurant one evening, watching families laugh inside, lights glowing warmly against the night. She never imagined that one decision, one act of calm bravery, would shift so many lives. But that's the strange thing about courage. It doesn't end with the person who chooses IT, that IT spreads, that IT frees, that IT transforms. Victoria had built her kingdom on fear. But Rachel, she built something different, that a ripple of strength that touched everyone around her. One woman, one truth, one moment of courage. And the world around her changed. Not with noise, not with victory speeches, but with freedom, with healing, with hope. And as Rachel stepped forward into her new future, finally standing tall, finally unbroken, she understood something important. The most powerful people are not the ones others fear. They're the ones who give others the strength to stop being afraid. This story isn't about revenge. It's about something far stronger: courage, integrity, and the power of one person refusing to be afraid. Rachel had no money, no influence, no safety net, but she had a voice, and she chose to use it, because every bully, no matter how rich or powerful, hides behind a mask. And sometimes, all it takes to remove that mask is a single brave soul willing to say, enough. Maybe that person could be you.